Welcome to the IFTA Screen Discussion series, putting focus on each of the featured films submitted for this year's IFTA Awards. Every week, we're putting the spotlight on a variety of diverse feature films representing the best of Irish filmmaking. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by filmmakers and cast of Mandrake. So hello and welcome, guys. We're joined today by producer Marie-Therese Mackle, director Lynn Davison, and actors Deirdre Mullins and Dervla Crotty. So welcome. How are you all doing, guys?
Very well, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mary, I suppose I'll start with you, if you wouldn't mind. I know obviously the film comes as part of the Northern Ireland Screen new talent focus, which has been hugely successful. I was just wondering if you could give me a little bit of background about how you came on board.
Yeah, so I've been, have a relationship with NI Screen for a long time, and actually I came a bit later on board. It was Lynn and Paul and Matt who, Matt had written the script and Lynn had came across the script, and then Paul optioned the script. So I had been doing lots of short films with Paul through his company. And I suppose it probably just seemed like the natural step that we then went and did this together. And I mean, I've been talking to Northern Ireland Screen for quite a few years about moving into features. It's my first feature production. This just felt like the right one because it was the kind of subject matter that I love, the themes that I love and all the witchiness and stuff. So it felt like the right one. And Lynn and I had talked about doing shorts together for years. Lynn had been a shadow director on a BBC Two series that I'd done a few years back. So we all just kind of, joined up in the middle and then we started.
Excellent. And I suppose, Lynn, for you, the film has some fantastically strong leading female characters. I was wondering, both bad and good, I suppose it's important to add. Was that something that really attracted you to the project whenever you first saw the script?
Yes, absolutely. As soon as I read the script and read these beautiful, complicated women, I knew that I had to be a part of it and I had to make it. So that was when I phoned Paul Kennedy, and then a week later, Paul had optioned it. But female-focused stories are just of the utmost importance to me. It's what I really thrive on, and I think it creates really dynamic stories, especially to explore themes like motherhood in our film and deconstruct it and present it in different ways.
And the story is written by Matt Harvey. I was wondering what sort of conversations you guys had with him about the sort of inspiration and origins of the film.
Well, when I first met Matt, he said that a lot of it came from when him and his wife had their first child, and he was inspired, and he would write kind of darker things anyway, but he seemed to just go on a tangent with it. And Matt is English, and he moved to Ireland for his wife, so he was introduced to, our wonderful culture and all the folk that we have that we've been raised on. So I think he found that all very inspiring. And then when we were chatting, and we kind of quickly realized we wanted to make the same film, and we had a lot of the same, inspirations for our work. It was just kismic.
I feel like when watching the film, I feel like a lot, like most communities, grow up or at least know of a creepy story or something that happened in the past, and I'd never really thought about it until watching the film, about how universal a theme I imagine that actually is, where I'm sure the stories are very, very different in different cultures, but it sort of taps into something very universal there.
Yeah, I mean, it's about fear, isn't it? And what humans do to explain that fear and explain the darkness, and obviously the cultural impacts of those stories and how we get loads of different versions. I love that. And, when you look into, I'm very interested in Greek mythology and, Greek plays, and so many of the themes that are repeated through time, through generations, and, getting to explore that and use our homegrown. Getting to use the Irish language in this film was a real joy and a passion. Unfortunately, I'm terrible with the Irish language, but my niece is a Gaeilgeoir, and she wrote it all out for me phonetically so we could chant for the soundtrack. But it felt like I always wanted to keep this film very grounded. I wanted our magic to be soil and blood and about someone that could see deeper into nature than the normal person could, and could utilize nature and use it. So all of that kind of went hand in hand with Ireland.
Yeah, and I guess there's a part early on in the film before, whenever the two children are sort of running through the marshes, and I think that sort of encapsulates how given a space of time, a very real story can turn into sort of folklore and can grow legs, and different bits and pieces can be sort of thrown, added onto it and taken away. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's almost as if they don't even realize that it is something very, very disturbing did in fact happen. But these stories can just generate that sort of fear to almost like, stop you from crossing into the field that you shouldn't be going into.
Yeah, and also the fear that develops into the locals practically chasing Mary down as if she's Frankenstein's monster. May as well have them with torches and pitchforks. We had a great laugh about that at the time, didn't we, Auntie?
Yeah, I think like for us, I mean, I think we just all gelled over that kind of folklore, Nathan. You're talking about, it's a very, I mean, it's in lots of European places, but it's a very Irish thing to have, the poor old woman in the village who's maybe the witch and she's probably tortured, but, and just that it's kind of just in us. So, and I mean, it's had such a resurgence here over the last few years, everyone wants to make a story about that now, and it's just, hopefully we don't run out of folk tales, but it's just something that completely sort of captured my imagination when I read the script and stuff. And Matt was brilliant during the whole development process. Like we talked, as I say, I came on kind of late on, and the script was in a great position at that point, but to actually sort of really bed down and think about, what kind of tree would they have used for that, or what kind of flower, is this real to the folklore, because there could be experts watching, and I'm not saying we got it right 100% of the time, but you can't, you're low budget filmmaking, so you're really trying and let you be even more imaginative. And Timmy, who made our Green Man, as we call him, outfit and stuff, was like making that from like some synthetic materials, but also from bark, and it felt like a sort of just being in the woods the whole time, where we're actually making it in a way, which was exciting.
Yeah, and that offered so much texture as well. It's always really important to me to bring texture to the screen. And, I wanted you to feel like you could smell the mud and the moss. And, certainly when Deirdre is in the mud, I really hope that everybody can feel her pain.
Still apologizing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Every time I see her, I just want to say I'm sorry.
I loved it. That's what we live for.
I certainly have questions about that coming down the line, and I can say that I certainly did. I was shivering when watching some of those scenes. But before we go there, I guess like it goes without saying that alongside Deirdre and Dervla, there's a really, really strong cast all around in this project, and I just want to know about the casting process itself and what you were looking for when you were recruiting.
Well, it was, we were doing everything during COVID time, so it was a little bit new and different. Everything was done over Zoom, and, it was when the rise of sending, a tape in. So we didn't have the opportunity to kind of meet each other. So that kind of, it made the process, so we had to adapt really to that process. And we found it was quite a struggle to find our Kathy and our Mary. We were very close to the line when we did find our brilliant actresses, but when we did, it just struck everyone, because before it was very much, okay, that person would maybe be good, or they could bring this to it. But when we met Deirdre and Dervla, we were talking to the characters, we were seeing them on screen, and you felt a presence with them, and they, just encompassed everything that I wanted and everything that everybody else wanted. So it was a unanimous decision. Everyone was like, yes, let's go on that. And outside of that, there are certain cast members like Seamus O'Hara, who I had wanted to work with for the longest time. And, he's did such an amazing performance, even though, he's in a masked suit the entire time. But, I would certainly say he's one of the most talented, he's one to watch. He's one of the most talented actors that I've seen in a while. And then of course, our hunt for Luke, our child actor, when we met Jude, Jude just kind of, he captured so much energy and really responded to everything that I said to him, and he has a great interest in Greek mythology as well, so we bonded over that, and he was just a joy to work with. I certainly remember, I think we were standing, it was one of the last scenes of the film, and Jude was watching Kathy, lift the hurley bat and go to the front door, and he had to be very scared, and we were all kind of watching him on the monitor, hoping he was okay, and obviously, you want him to be, he's gone through a lot in this film, and you just want him to be in good spirits. And as soon as I called cut, he was just a beaming smile, and he was the happiest child you'd ever seen. So everyone was just a joy to work with, and people that had been recommended by other filmmakers that I know, as in Chris, who directed Bad Day for the Cut, and recommended Nigel. And then of course, Paul, our producer, is one of our cast members as well. It was funny when we were searching for Paul, myself and Ursula Devine at Northern Ireland Screen, when we were searching for Jason, we said, do you know Paul would actually be really good for that role? And then Paul was like, well, I didn't want to say anything, but I'd love to go up for the role. So that was cool. It was interesting and fun, and he was just wonderful, and brilliantly divided his time and gave us everything that he could, especially on the day where, well, spoiler alert, where we sliced his throat.
Yeah, I'd say it sounds like Paul played that to a T, where he was probably leaving little breadcrumbs, and then whenever you naturally came along suggesting him, he was like, God, that's a great idea.
I know, he'd just turn up, in a costume that I kind of mentioned, and act really policey.
And Deirdre and Derfla, I'd love to know, you guys must have been very excited whenever the script came to you. What was it about the characters that appealed to you most, I guess?
Go on, Dervla, go on.
God, Mary Laidlaw. I mean, I don't think another one's going to come along like her. Yeah, it's just so intriguing, this woman with so much history. And then, the twist of all twists, because I'm reading it as a complete innocent, the first time. And then I nearly dropped the script and realized, oh, okay, that's going on. So that's wonderful to encompass so many things. I love what Lynn has said about the connection with nature and the sense of being sort of occupying more dimensions than just than the human dimension. And of course, in a classic way, she's got so much at stake. She wants her son to live, and she can't lose him. She's willing to do anything. She plays a very long game to achieve that. And those dilemmas are real, for all that we're in a kind of wonderful genre. You were never in doubt about why you were doing anything, putting Deirdre out to find the Mandrake, and, the whole desperation of it. So that was very clear from the script. And then, on set, it was really the most harmonious process that I've ever experienced, a film process. And I think possibly the fact that we did it in COVID times, in fact, probably, made it all the more, we were so bonded. We'd do a test every few days, and there were those crazy tests where you had to put like a box within a box, and then you had to tape it, and you had to send it by courier. It was all sorts of madness. And then, wow, you're actually on set. So like getting to set was an achievement in itself. And staying on set was an achievement.
Yeah.
So it's funny, even just 2 years later, how some of that you forget. But and then we're back in this hardly occupied hotel at all, the Grand Central, this huge hotel. And Deirdre and I, meeting the corridors and knowing that you're up the road, just a few steps away, and we lock ourselves in, and then we come out to play again. So it was really, I'm never going to have that experience again, more than likely. But but to go back to Mary, really dream role, as they say.
The thing I always love, and I talk about in many of the interviews, is just the nuances that you were able to bring to Mary, because we never wanted her to be, a cut and dry villain. She has her own moral code, and
absolutely,
she's functioning within nature, and this is what she needs to do. You know, I always like to equate the opposite of that to a villain twisting their mustache as they're killing kids. But you know, I wanted the audience to understand her, and I hope and I think we were successful in that.
And for you, Deirdre?
I mean, I think, you know, you guys have covered so much of it, the kind of the real, even though it's a genre piece, the realness, the depth and texture of the characters, the quality of the what Matt's created. So, you know, and that I didn't as well, you know, you don't know how it's going to end. It's a very surprising and magical sort of unraveling of narratively. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. And the character, she was absolutely fascinating, like a sort of, you know, and it's particularly as a kind of like an opposite side of a coin to Dervla's character. You know, they in many ways I saw Kathy as the prototype to becoming, you know, Mary, that there was not really that much difference between the two in many ways. It's perhaps as much about circumstances as anything else, and the complexity, the evil and good within all of the characters in the show is just brilliantly drawn. So yeah, it was such a joy, such a pleasure, and such a pleasure to work with Dervla as well. I'd watched her on stage, you know, growing up. You know, my teens were spent watching Dublin theatre, and she was in, you know, everything. And so, you know, I was really excited to work with her, you know, and it was, yeah, oh, I loved it. I loved making the whole thing. But yes, it was uncomfortable. The mud was a little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Although we restricted that quite a lot. You didn't have to do it too many times, if I recall correctly. But
it was fine for us. Yeah, it was fine for us. Like, we shot it in 15 days as well. So it kind of, actually looking back now, because it's been a while, it feels like it was so quick. You know, like, I think, you know, it's a huge task to have to do. And so you're really, you know, cutting your mustard with what you can shoot and whatever. And like, without Deirdre and Dervla being such good sports, mightn't have got it in the 15 days. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like such an effort of, and I mean, that's kind of the joy as well, I think, in low budget filmmaking at times. It's just that camaraderie you have with the cast and crew. You know, you're not in it for the big bucks, you're in it for the art, and that there's a different level of family or something at that point then, you know, which is the great thing about that scheme that Northern Ireland Screen do time and time again every year with lots of success. But without these two, you know, it wouldn't have been just as dreamy.
Well, certainly not. I think everyone, you know, from our leads down to our runners, everyone gave it their all every single day. Everybody was on Team Mandrake, and we were in it to win it, really. And like, as a first-time features director, I felt very comfortable and supported by, you know, the entire team. It was wonderful. You know, like Dervla said, it was an experience I'll never have again. And you know, that's maybe kind of sad in a way, but hopefully replicate it a bit.
But you were nothing like you did not feel like a first-time director, I have to say. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing. You felt so calm, so experienced. You know, you had answers to everything. You thought about everything. It was a really incredibly intense but very smoothly run whole experience. You know.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I think a lot of that comes from raising a teenager. I think that just gives you a patience and a calmness that you know, prepares you like nothing else for a film set.
Yeah.
I feel like there must be something going on with the new talent scheme, because there seems to be a bit of an obsession with mud and bog and everything. Like, having spoken to Brian Faulkner and Mo Dunford before, who did The Dig, I think you've been spared slightly. At least didn't have you digging holes in a bog for the entirety of the shoot.
Well, close enough.
Yeah, my very first shoot was dragging you through the mud, and with just a little lamp, a little tilly lamp, lighting everything.
I remember digging in the wrong patch, because I was, you know, we were shooting, I was dragging through the mud, and then I started digging, and I heard like, cut, and I was in the wrong place. So we had to go again, and oh my God.
There was still some great crawling in that take, so don't worry.
My God.
And can you guys tell me, like, you've touched on a couple of things there. There seems to be a recurring theme throughout these discussions about how for the projects that filmed during COVID, there seems to be now with a bit of time to reflect on it, that unity of coming through something like that there seems to be a really, really strong unity between the cast and crew, and a sense of achievement of what had to be done under such, as you said, it was an achievement just to get onto set and to remain on set. So I feel like you must sort of hold a bit of a bond together that's very different to anything else that might have been done before.
Well, I remember a day with you, Darfla. I don't know if I should talk about this really, but it was, getting onto set, and in COVID, when big productions have lots of ways and logistics to work that out, and we really didn't. So you have to be slightly inventive about how you build that strategy. But I remember you had an inconclusive test or something, Darfla. And I just remember you standing outside the house in the distance, and I kind of came over, but not too close. And it was kind of like, we had just heard that your test was clear, and it was like, actually, you're fine, because that would have been the end of it, and then who knows how that shoot could have picked up again, because it just wasn't going to be as easy as standing everybody in bed for a week and then come back. Plus, we were just before Christmas. So, you could say we had a lot against us, but we were also extremely lucky, and I don't know, maybe there was a dark force shining on us in some way, or, but, we were lucky, because some other films that were happening at the time weren't as lucky.
Dinian was shooting at the same time, wasn't it? With Damien McCann, and they got shut down loads. I think Damien and I were chatting at the Belfast Film Festival, and he said that he was praying that we were going to get shut down as well. Because they were getting shut down so much. And they were like, it can't just be us.
Yeah, I know it, and it is isolated, and it's hard when that happens. I really felt for them at the time, because there was no rhyme or reason really, and we were all still working on it at that point. COVID was, productions were only coming back from the end of August, September, and this was December, and we had no money. So when you say about bonds and stuff, like we were in this little bubble. But I just remember that day with Dervla, and I think after that we just started talking lots more about lots of things, because it was kind of like, it's okay, we've made it, kind of, and you're definitely in it.
I remember that so well. I absolutely do. Yeah, and I know that I burst out crying when you told me I was there. I can remember that. I can see that yard.
Yeah.
And it was so terrible having to isolate straight away. And of course, just going, this is just unthinkable. Anything else. But some little intervention there.
Yeah.
And the sense of
whispering woods or something,
The sense of responsibility that if you're the one who has been uncareful or somehow has done something that you've not washed your hands or something like that.
Yeah. Such wonderful surreal times.
Yeah.
And then we're into this extraordinary story of healing, actually, of death and healing. But I'm just thinking with you, Deirdre, all of that very gruesome and brutal stuff to put you back together again. Yeah. And I just love that. I love that these people are so damaged, and Mary is damaged. She's burnt all over her body, and then there's this transformation. And then healing at great cost to somebody else, but in these incredible times when you looked out the window of the hotel and all of the right in front of the big square and the whole shopping district completely empty. It was total intense lockdown then. And we had a closed set as well. That was fun. That's my first closed set.
Yeah, that was really special, actually. It was when, because that change to the ending of the film came when we had just started shooting, and myself, MT, and Paul had kind of had a discussion about the end of the film and how we felt it needed something, and I really wanted to end on a really visual note that just embodied or encapsulated Mary in nature, Mary at her most powerful and most comfortable. So that was what we ended up doing, and it was wonderful. It was really, I don't know, it felt kind of spiritual in a way, watching that movement in the forest. So I hope it has that effect on the audience. But I must mention that during COVID and everything that we needed to do, we wouldn't have got through it without MT becoming an expert on COVID and all of her planning and all of, I mean, it was unbelievable what she was able to do. And then, of course, Paul as well. And we had a wonderful COVID supervisor with us who just really looked after everybody. Like, I think we all gave him a very big round of applause on the last day.
Yeah.
Because we made it,
And there was no extra money, because that was just, it wasn't like, we kind of, I think at one point we really did try. We're like, but hold on, it's really unfair. We're trying to make this, and all the other scheme years haven't had to take all this testing money out, and it wasn't even just testing money. It was that kind of isolation accommodation. When you're low budget filmmaking, you can't find inventive ways to put people up, but we actually did have to give Deborah and Deirdre an actual proper place to be, and hotels with protocols and all that kind of thing. Like, it's bonkers actually thinking about it all now. It feels very far away.
Happily far away, MT.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, thank you, but no expert. It was there was a lot of luck. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was nice to try and be inventive, and actually funny when you're talking about that last scene, Dervla, and I think a lot of that was because you were so creative in your chats with Lynn, and the fact that you guys could have that open platform to discuss doing something like that. And again, it's kind of the kind of joy of low budget filmmaking where you don't get to necessarily do that in other formats or more commercial formats. It's like you can change, and good crack.
Yeah.
And can you guys tell me, you've obviously touched on it a bit there, but just in terms of obviously the location plays such a massive part to sort of setting the tone, and obviously the undertones of the Mandrake itself. But can you tell me a little bit about making it, I don't know what's the word that I'm looking for, but as you said earlier, you wanted to get the sense that you would feel the cold, mucky, wet nature of where it was filming, which I really did feel came across. You shot it over 15 days, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? And I suppose I'll ask the cast first, Deirdre and Dervla, what was it like doing
Sorry,
that?
18 days, sorry.
Eight,
3 6-day weeks. Yeah.
Okay. But what was it like immersing, an all immersive experience, I would imagine, might encapsulate it?
It was, for me, I've done a sort of slightly similar film, which is very sort of a folk horror thriller, which was also quite kind of physical. So yeah, it's very challenging in sort of surprising ways. The things that happen to you, like, you're just not quite sure. Like, I remember one time I was running with a chain around my neck, and as I was running past the cameraman, I ended up the chain ended up wrapping around Connor's leg, and went absolutely flying. So like the sort of like slightly improvisatory sort of raw nature of like, okay, we're doing the shot here, that's what we're gonna do. It's sort of it kind of leads to, just all sorts of, like, it was absolutely fine, but like, probably magic moments where things happen that you're not quite expecting and they look amazing on camera. But the torture scenes where you're like, I have no idea how this is going to work. Let's try this. Or, there was such a sense of like making it up as we were going. And I think maybe some of that magic of that slightly ad hoc nature translates over in the film itself, a rawness that I think is really magic.
And I feel like, Dervla, your card, particularly at the beginning, Mary sort of hides in the shadows. I couldn't help but feel like if I was even the person holding the camera, I'd be kind of creeped out by some of the scenes through the broken glass in the house and internally. Was that like, what was it like doing some of those night scenes, I guess?
Well, that house was, you hear this said, but truly that house was a character in itself. And we were hoping to have the full use of the house, but then upstairs became unusable when somebody practically went through the ceiling just on a recce upstairs. Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredible, isn't it? When you feel so when you walk into a place and you feel this is the character's home. I mean, that just seemed, again, one of those kismety things. I thought, these people are geniuses. I mean, this location is I mean, you know, oh, you've got all the sensory, the smell, and the small windows, and the gloominess of it, and the moss out in the yard, and stuff growing out of everywhere. You know, so that quite funny as well that we do or I put a tube down Deirdre's throat, and that was our green room. So we had to kind of like really quickly improvise a bedroom in there. So I think those things are just the joy. I've got such vivid memories. But that sense that you were moving between life, your own life, and the life of the film, you had no distance to go at all. You were kind of always ready to just be present in that other reality. And I think that's wonderful when you find it, like when there's a genius location like that. I think that becomes really possible without going the full method. You're already immersed, you know, you don't have to work so hard at it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, that it's really successfully translated onto the screen, because maybe it's one thing to feel it and to go, oh, wow, this is great. But, you know, the artistry to capture that and then to using what you said as well, Deirdre, the imaginative response to the available materials, you know. So I don't know if that house will it still be there? Is it condemned? Were we the last humans in it? I can't imagine that it will ever be.
They were trying to sell that house, actually. It was a family home. I think the mother had passed away not that long beforehand, so that's why we had the lovely, you know, I mean, that is kind of sad, you know, someone actually lived in that house and it still kind of had that old world look about it. So it was kind of perfectly what we'd been looking, like Lynn and I'd been looking for quite some time. We'd seen loads of houses and some that we both fell in love with in different ways, but too close to a road, couldn't film there, sign man says no, you know, and you know, there's all sorts of reasons, but it was definitely, I think they were trying, it needed a lot of money put into it, that house. But it is a beautiful house, you know, that way. But that is quite funny, yeah. And I remember, oh, that bedroom was lovely, Lynn, as well. Do you remember that we were actually going to film in it? I mean, I for you, I was like, no, do we really, you know? But we couldn't. I mean, what happened? It was this beautiful plaster wall. It had several layers of different colored peaches and turquoises, and it just looked magnificent for that scene. And then I think the sound trainee put his foot through a part of the floor at one point. So we thought, right, we maybe shouldn't. And I mean, we'd had all the checks done, it was fine. But anyway, that was a blessing in disguise because it obviously wasn't really fine. So we ended up very quickly kicking the girls out of the green room to redress it as a bedroom. Yeah, it's all good crack.
But I think that, you know, you had mentioned the word immersive, and that's really what I want to do with my sets. I want to make them as immersive as possible to, you know, aid my cast and, you know, falling into their roles and feeling it. And, you know, and that was the wonderful thing, you know, everybody, they were so prepared when they walked on set. And then that added bonus of there being things you can lift and you can move around and interact with. You know, I think that just added so many levels to what we were trying to do. And then, you know, getting to kind of have nice dim light coming in, and, you know, it's boarded up windows with a bit of light, and then utilizing as much practical lighting as we could, you know, with our lamp, with a beautiful warm flame, which was a bit of a nightmare because it kept going out on us, and you know, or they would have to run in and light it again. But you know, Connor, the cinematographer, worked really well with all of the natural light that I wanted, and roaring fires and silhouettes, and you know, just really gave us something beautiful. You know, at the beginning when we were discussing it, we were talking about how, if nothing else, we wanted to make a beautiful film, and we wanted the frames to stand alone as a still, and I certainly think we've achieved that.
Yeah, I think some of the scenes by candlelight felt like, you know, you're almost drawn in to the tightness of some of the shots, or of what you could see. And I'm kind of intrigued to know, Dervla and Deirdre, whether with your characters, how, I suppose you sort of mentioned before that they kind of had things that they wouldn't have realized in common, but the I feel like they both sort of were outsiders in different senses, particularly like, you know, obviously with Kathy not being from around the area and not growing up with that inherited sort of story, you sort of, I suppose your character came towards Mary with a bit of an objective view rather than everyone assuming, and then I guess you sort of learn over the course of the film that Derva, your character Mary, sort of is ostracized. There's no chance for anyone changing their mind over it. So it's quite I found it a very interesting juxtaposition or like crossover of that, you know, two very unique ways of looking at an outsider in a community, I guess.
Absolutely. And for Kathy, I think a mother who is outside of the traditional mothering sort of what is expected of motherhood and what a relationship might be like with her son. You know, there was in many ways, not only that she was literally not from the village, but also she had a sort of strange relationship with her son. And as a probation officer, you know, it's a very difficult position to be in, reintegrating people into a community if the community are hostile to that, you know, so you're in a really liminal, difficult place, and she's bringing a huge kind of the viewer's rational mind to a situation that seems kind of unnecessarily wild, and that character being drawn into that wildness and savagery, and maybe a more honest version of her true self, I think is extraordinary to watch for an audience, and fuels the story and the pleasure of the film, I think.
Yeah, and I think it poses questions as well about Kathy post-film, and what Kathy are we left with? And that was the question I want the audience to go out of the cinema with. And, you know, what did she do next? Do you think that she could have done it? And, you know, and I think that that's really wonderful and wild that Mary could potentially have created almost or encouraged another version of herself even more and imparted her gift.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that we shot the very ending at the start as well. So that, you know, you knew where you were going to end up, you know, in this really wild, savage place.
Yeah, it's definitely part of Mary's motivation to bring on a protege somehow. An odd kind of generosity, you know, there's that sense, isn't it? You can have it if you want. You know, the kind of like
she sees her, like Mary sees her, sees who she is.
Yeah, and Mary has very strong opinions about right and wrong, as you say, a very clear other moral code. And Jess sees this woman in need of some guidance or some options. And there's that wonderful scene where it's like, why do you stay here? I mean, I have to.
Twisted sense of sisterhood.
Yeah. Here's this woman who's been in prison for 25 years, giving advice to, you know, ostensibly a very modern woman who's got modern responsibilities and blah blah blah, and cell phones, and you know, drives a nice car and all of that kind of thing. And I love how with Mary, there's no real, it's like she's outside of time in a way. And she doesn't want it doesn't seem like she certainly doesn't want any of the comforts of home. But it's like she doesn't want anything that separates her from the natural, I suppose, is the thing. I think the most compelling thing is this, I don't know, is it a bond? But this understanding, this growing understanding, this recognition, as you say, Lynn, actually, it's a recognition of one for the other. And of course, Kathy completely resists it, and why wouldn't she? But I think once Mary sees something, it's going to happen in some way. You know, there's a kind of a...
It's like Greek tragedy, prophetess kind of, you know, self-fulfilling kind of thing about it, yeah.
Yeah. I'm down here in Canterbury doing a Greek tragedy.
Oh, which one?
What do you think? I'm doing one that was lost, and it's been just written as if it was found. It's the second part of the Danae. It's called the Egyptians.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah. So there you go. We always meet at this crossroads, right? Greek tragedy.
We do.
And then can I just ask you about being picked up by Bluefinch Films, who I know represented on the world sales for the film, which was then picked up by Shudder, which I think is always a great representation of any horror film or folk horror, I suppose.
Well, Paul had been working, to sell the film and get people on board, and we had heard about Bluefinch, we had heard about what Mike was doing and kind of forming his own company, and it felt like they were the most enthusiastic about our film. They really saw the potential of where it could go and what it could do, and when we found a home in Shudder, it was just absolutely wonderful, because Shudder encourage you to go to festivals. Like, there's no festival cut off for you. You could still go. So, we went all around the world with Mandrake, and I got to go to a few of them, which of course is always great fun. And to be supported by them and on their platform. And even recently I was, my mum called me to tell me that she saw that on Amazon, Mandrake is one of the most popular Shudder movies, so like we're still kind of making an impact there, which is really exciting. And I know the Shudder team just really loved the film and really got on board with everything that we wanted to do. And, I'm still talking with some of the Shudder team, some of them produce films. So hopefully we can work on something else together. But Shudder is the perfect platform for us, and we're really thrilled to be there.
And what sort of feedback have you gotten at some of the festivals that you've attended? I'd love to know what people have said to you.
One person said to me that they were now obsessed with the film, that was now their new favorite film, and they wanted to watch it every day, which of course is always, that's like what you want to hear. And others were really interested in the witchcraft in our research. One person I met said, I think I met her in Finland, she said that she is a Wicca, and she felt like this was one of the more true to form representations of Wicca on screen. Obviously there was things that we didn't get entirely right, but she said that it really, she felt represented. People really seemed to love the dread of the film and the dread of what we built, and really got on board with the characters, and it posed a lot of questions for people when they left the screen. But I think one thing that I found very interesting was kind of parallels with other filmmakers. There were certain films and filmmakers, and we all just seemed to be on the same track. We kept kind of running into each other at festivals. And there was a few in particular, and there was similar themes in our films and similar like visual references. And it was a wonderful conversation as to why did we both reach that same place with what we were working on, and the cultural similarities between, say, Ireland and where was it now, Estonia, and what we kind of share. And culturally, that's just really fascinating and interesting, and and inspiring. So I think getting to not only talk to so many people that responded to the film firsthand and would come and shake your hand and say, well done, but also getting to watch all of these amazing films as well. You just come out of it so inspired to do the next thing.
And has anyone else had an opportunity to watch it with a live audience at any festivals or?
Well, I didn't go to the festivals, but we did. It was at the Belfast Festival at home. They were really, really supportive of us. And so that was kind of the first, I think, was that the first time? Was it
Yeah.
Screen? So that was just, I mean, like, you want your film to travel, that was key, and it did. But it's also really lovely for people at home, and especially your harshest critics. We've lots of friends, obviously, from everything that we all do, in the industry and in the festival and stuff. And, for people to genuinely seem to really like it, folk horror fans who seem to really like it, when you're sort of thinking, oh, this is going to be a harsh judgment, and, genuine praise for that, and that was nice, so that was kind of as far as I traveled. But
it's funny, the day after we screened, I went to see another film at the festival. I can't recall what it was now, but I was sitting behind quite a well-known producer from Belfast, and they didn't know I was there, and they were talking about Mandrake to someone else, and they were singing our praises. And so I just sat there very quietly and kind of took it all on
Brilliant.
board.
Best praise.
Yeah.
They could have been slagging us off, so that was
I know,
great.
exactly, because I heard it being mentioned, and there were certain, you know, descriptions. I was like,
Did I lift it
we're
or not?
talking about Mandrake.
No.
But they were very complimentary, and yeah, so that was really great. Felt vindicated and everything.
I mean, it's hard to do. It is hard to do a film, you know, in 18 days. So, you know, hats off to Lynn for the first time, because it can go very wrong. It's you know, it's not an easy thing to do, even with lots of money at times, you know. So I think there was that magic recipe in a way for Mandrake, in that, you know, Matt had written this great script and was so open to us, Lynn, wasn't he, for, you know, for input and changes. Like, you know, there was such an openness with the conversations with him on script.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful brainstorming sessions about things and different ways to achieve what we wanted tonally and visually. So it was really great.
Well, well done again, because it was really enjoyable film. I think that all came across on screen. So thank you so much, guys, for speaking with me today, and I hope to see you all again soon in the future.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Nathan.
No worries at all.
Lovely to see everybody as well.
It's so great to see everybody.
I
I can't believe
3 years ago.
Disappear now, and
Yeah.
terrible, because it's like we've lit a fire. And I just kind of want to sit around the fire with all of you.
Yeah, we left it open, Lynn, you know, that last scene.
Oh yeah. Matt and I were talking about a prequel at one point.
Excellent. Yeah.
There you go. We'll see y'all here next year. So
all right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Nathan.
thanks guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.